And you should have a little notification there to comply. All right, and I'm going to share my screen really quick. Okay. And see if I can get, yes, obviously that would not let me stop sharing. I am sorry. I am going to tap dance here. Get this over here, here. And all right, I think I have my act together now. Okay, hopefully everyone can see Scrum Masters of the Universe now.
Yep, you're good.
Yep.
All right. So let's presenter view. That's not the slide that I wanted. So give me one more second. Hopefully everyone can see Scrum Masters of the Universe. Okay, welcome to Scrum Masters of the Universe. I'm Mark Metz and I'm here to host this session today. Talk about our mission a little bit. So we want to provide a place for Scrum enthusiasts, and really we've expanded not just Scrum, but Agile enthusiasts in general to learn, grow, and flourish in applying Scrum and Agile in the world of work, maybe even outside of work in our personal lives too. And we believe that there's a lot of value in getting out of our silos and not just focusing in on the current company or the current team that we work on, getting out of those silos and connecting with other people who have other experiences and who are passionate about growing as a Scrum and Agile practitioner. Here's a slide of our leadership team. Jamie Kriegel is our leader. She's our founder of this group. Also, you have me and you have Katrin Hamoltz. This is summertime, so Katrin is on vacation in Italy, I believe. So she's not able to join us today. So I am the only one. Please be patient if I'm not able to keep up with questions. So I'm the one person behind the board here trying to run things. And I'll share our LinkedIn profiles if you want to connect with us later. A variety of ways for you to connect with us, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, Meetup, or YouTube. All of our sessions right now we are recording and putting on YouTube. We always have questions on our Meetup group or our Meetup page on, did you happen to record this session? I wasn't able to make it. I wasn't able to make it. Jamie does an awesome job with posting those. So it may take a couple days, maybe 3 or 4 days, but we always do put them up there. If you want to get a screenshot, now would be a good time to have those links. If not, no worries. I'll put those in the chat during the session. Some events coming up in September. So on September 8th, which is not far away, we're almost in September. Can you believe it? Dana Pilayeva. I promised myself I was going to pronounce that correctly. Dana Pilayeva. It's going to talk to us about liberating structures. It's always interesting to see others' perspectives of whether you use liberating structures or not. I'm very excited about that one on September 8th. And then the following day on the 9th, Kevin Callahan has a presentation on user story maps. I think that's good for Scrum Masters to listen to, in addition to product owners and Scrum practitioners, Agile practitioners. And then finally, at the end of the month on the 29th, Patrick Adams is going to teach us about becoming a learning organization with an interesting story there about how one marshmallow can change the way we think about problem solving. So those are our September events. We've got some good ones lined up there. And we want to thank our sponsors, Agile Alliance, Agile.ai, and Scrum.org. If it wasn't for their contributions, we wouldn't have this space. We wouldn't have these Zoom sessions that we're able to share with you on. So they have made a contribution in order to make this happen. So encourage you to visit them. Really appreciate their sponsorship. It means a lot to us. Okay. A couple months ago, I think it was a couple months ago, we sent out a survey. And many people responded to that. And you see by this wheel over here to the right, you see email addresses. And we actually did this during our last meeting. We spun the wheel to see who was going to win a signed copy of Jeff Watts's book, Team Mastery. So we did that, and Jamie reached out to the winner, and they never responded. So guess what? We get to spin the wheel again to see if somebody else. So this may be your lucky day. We just have emails captured here. Hope we aren't violating any privacy laws by doing this, but let's spin the wheel and see who's going to win a signed copy of Team Mastery for Jeff Watts. Okay, assuming the name of or the email address has the name Jamie Horn 512@gmail.com. So you won. You can take a screenshot of that so I don't forget. Let's do that really quick. All righty. Got it. Okay, Jamie. So we'll be reaching out to you, get your information so that we can send you your signed copy of Team Mastery. Okay. All right, what you've all come here to listen to, not me, but listen to Stephanie. So let me bring up some information that Stephanie has here for me. All right, so I was able to meet Stephanie this morning, and Stephanie Cully, she's a Scrum Master, a motivational speaker, and a CEO of Scrum Life Consulting. She's also the co-founder of an online course called Agile Sidekick. If you haven't joined that, I'd encourage you to. I've looked there as well to help others develop their Agile career. Stephanie's passionate about helping people land their dream job as a Scrum Master so they can create the life that they always wanted. In 2019, Stephanie founded Scrum Life Consulting LLC with a mission to shape the future for Scrum Masters. And the six-week Scrum Immersion Program prepares people for advancement to become a full-time Scrum Master and to lead with confidence. So with that, I turn it over to Stephanie to present to us about stop avoiding conflict and start building better teams. Stephanie?
Thanks so much for the introduction, Mark, and thank you for hosting me for this event. I'm really excited to speak to everybody. So let me go ahead. Okay. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep, Steph.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so thanks everybody for joining this session. Today, I wanted to talk to you about how you can stop avoiding conflicts and how you can take some techniques to build better Scrum teams. For me personally, I used to have a lot of issues with avoiding conflict. I didn't see it as a positive thing. And even though I was good at helping other people resolve their conflicts, I really avoided it when it came to situations where I had to deal with people and confront them. But over time, I've learned that dealing with conflict is actually a good thing and it helps build better teams. And I'm going to share those techniques with you today. Oops. Gonna skip over this. Okay. And then just a little bit about why I'm qualified to talk about this topic. So as Mark said, I am an Agile career coach. I help people to get jobs as a Scrum Master. I also am launching a course this month with Chris Williams to help you understand how to interview better, how to deal with conflicts, those types of things. But I've actually been a full-time Scrum Master for over 5 years, and I've worked in the IT industry for over 10 years. So waterfall projects, Scrum projects, you name it. I've had a lot of different positions within IT, and I've just seen so many different conflicts. So that's why I'm qualified to talk about this topic. Of course, even though I've spent over 10 years in IT, that doesn't mean I've seen every possible conflict that you could possibly see. That's just impossible. But I do have a lot of experience to share with you today. And I hope by the end of this presentation, you'll feel a lot more confident. And after this, if you're someone who avoids conflict, I want you to be someone who can use these tools and face conflict confidently and try to use that to shape your team in a better way. Okay, that's just some information on Agile Sidekick. And then the thing that I ask from all of you today is, I'm not a fan of presentations where you just sit there and you listen to someone talk the whole time. I think it's a lot more interesting, and I think you get a lot more out of it if it's engaging. And by engaging, that means participating in, I'm going to have some survey questions on here. When we get to the Q&A section, I want you to ask honest questions. There's no right or wrong, or like no bad question. So let's try to make this fun and interactive. And the way that we're going to do this is scattered throughout the presentation. I'll have a couple of questions, and I will hold time at the end for you to be able to ask if you have like a specific conflict situation, or if you want to know more about some of the tips that I give. I definitely welcome you to ask those questions. And then the other thing that I want everyone to do right now, and actually Mark, if you could help me on this, is if while I'm giving when I go to the next slide, if you could go to menteecom, that's the tool that we're going to be using when I ask you a couple of questions. So go ahead and try menteecom. And then Mark, I sent you a direct message in the webinar. If you could drop that in the chat window to everybody, that's the direct link to menteecom for this session. So, and you also have the option to download the app on your phone if you want, but probably menteecom is the quickest way to do that. And I'll share the code in a minute. So while you guys are doing that, I wanted to share a little bit of a story to introduce this topic. And as you can see from the picture, hopefully you know where this is, the happiest place on earth, which is Disney World. And Disney World, I would say, is definitely one of the happiest places on earth. However, you might not know that it started out as a company that had a lot of conflict. What do I mean by that? So there are actually two founders to Disney. It was Walt Disney, who I'm sure everybody knows, and his brother Roy. Now, they were both co-founders, and Walt was the creative genius behind the cartoons and everything associated with Disney. But his brother Roy was very smart financially. So he was really the financial person, operations, you name it. And Walt was happy to just go on his own and do all of the creative stuff. Now, they did have a team behind them, but I just want to focus on Roy and Walt for right now for the purpose of the story. So they founded first Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio. That was what it was named originally. And the first part of it was really just having cartoons and nothing else. So off and on throughout both of their lives, they had a lot of conflict. So you can imagine they're both brothers. They have probably sibling conflicts that come up, but definitely a lot of conflicts that came up related to running the business. Most of the things that came up were around their two different personalities or their two different visions around what do things look like from a financial perspective. Roy wanted to make sure that they didn't go bankrupt, which was actually a possibility at one point. Walt wanted to make sure that they were pushing the boundaries. And a lot of you guys can relate to this. He wanted to push the innovation boundaries of like the different types of technology, the different ways to do cartoons. And so you see a lot of that innovation in Disney World today. But it actually came to a huge conflict at one point where they developed all of these different products and services that they were selling. And finally, one day, Walt brought up the idea of, I really want to create this land, Disneyland, where people can go, spend time with family, have rides. And a lot of people thought it was an absolutely horrible idea. People from the company, I'm sure people outside, thinking, what the heck is Walt thinking about? And Roy had a tremendous amount of resistance towards Walt, and basically said financially, he went out, he tried to get the money to help Walt and said, financially, we can't do this. We're going to bankrupt the entire company if we build this. So the conflict became so bad that Walt actually went out and created his own new company, which was called WED Enterprises. It stood for his name, but it was basically another Disney company. So you can see this is the extreme situation of when you have a conflict where you just can't even, you're at a standstill. So no one can come to a resolution. He just founded his own company. He went out, he got the money. And then eventually, the success part to the story the whole purpose of this story is they were able to come to an agreement. I honestly don't think that they were that great at handling their conflicts. A lot of it came to Roy kind of just going like, okay, well, I agree with you, I'll back down, and he'll just kind of go with whatever Walt says. I don't really like to see those types of conflicts where it's just one person wins out over the other. But either way, they were able to have some conversations, and they ended up rejoining. The two companies became one. And I feel like the rest is pretty much history. They were able to work successfully after that point. As a result of resolving this conflict, they were able to have huge success in their business. They were able to have a way stronger relationship than they ever had. Originally, I think Walt Disney World was supposed to be named just Disney World or something related to the two brothers' names. Walt ended up dying before Disney World was opened, and Roy loved his brother so much, their conflict was really resolved. So he said, no, I want it to be called Walt Disney World after my brother. So I just thought this was a really good story on people see conflict as such a bad thing. And yeah, there are certain better ways than some to probably handle it. But in the end, they ended up creating a company that within the first year, they had 5 million visitors. And it's just one of the most well-known companies in the world. So that's my story about conflict. And I hope this gives you a little bit of perspective about what can actually happen if you're good, if you come to a consensus and you can resolve that conflict. Okay. And then going back to real world examples, $359 billion in paid hours, or the equivalent of 358 million working days, are lost each year to workplace conflict in the US. Now, I wish that there was more context around this quote that I found, or the study that I found, but I would be willing to bet that a lot of the conflict that they're talking about is more unresolved conflict, because conflict is one thing, you confront it and you deal with it. But having unresolved conflict is way worse, because that leads to a lot of resentment, people not working well together. I'm sure you've dealt with conflict before. You know all of the negative things associated with it and how it can really decrease the productivity for both you and your team. So the question that I have today, all of you are here to learn about conflict. I really want to know what percentage of you are conflict avoiders and you want to try to get better at this, or how many of you feel that you're very confident, you're basically a conflict pro. So if you could do me a favor and go to menteecom or the app, and if I could move this so you can actually see what the thing is. So you're going to put code 79377904 in there, and you can go ahead and answer, would you rather handle a conflict with your boss? You think that they're wrong, or would you rather go to the dentist? And I'm going to give it a few seconds here.
What's the code again? Never mind, I see it at the top. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, it looks like the numbers stopped bouncing around. Maybe not. Okay. So I think we're good. If you guys still want to vote, that's fine. I'm just going to talk a little bit to this point. But you can see here, this was kind of the point that I wanted to make, is that not everybody is comfortable with conflict. And it's easy to understand why. One of the biggest reasons that people are afraid of conflict is, one, sometimes it can be a little bit awkward. Two would be that you're worried about how is this going to affect your relationships. So I think a lot of times when you're dealing with conflict, it's, especially if you're talking about with your boss, it's not like just a random stranger on the street, you have a conflict with them, things don't work out, you're mad at each other, end of story. You want to be able to resolve a conflict in a way that builds relationships, helps with communication and those types of things. And okay, so it looks like final results here. Close to like half of you would rather go to the dentist than have a conflict with your boss. So let's go ahead and work on that in this presentation, and come up with some ways to be able to deal with conflict a little bit better. So thanks for your participation on that one. Looks like it's frozen here, sorry. Okay. So I was just stating here that it's really tempting to try to avoid it, but most of the time it's going to come back and it's going to bite you later if you try to avoid it, because this issue could happen again and it really doesn't resolve. If there's inter-team conflicts, it's going to cause more of a conflict on your Agile or your Scrum team. So I like to say, rather than viewing conflict as an issue or a bad thing, I like to view it as an opportunity. And I wanted to share with you some of the opportunities that are gained by resolving conflicts. So the first thing is more innovation. This happens because when people are able to be more free in the way that they're talking with their teams, you're able to generate more innovation instead of people shutting down and not being able to freely be able to share ideas. One of the biggest ones is improving relationships. A lot of times after you have a fight with someone or a conflict with someone, you learn a lot more about their communication style, their values, and ways that you should and should not work together. If you resolve your conflict, you've also reduced stress because you're not spending a lot of time thinking about it and worrying whether or not this is going to block you from getting things done within your projects. You improve your communication skills. That's just by being able to understand better how to communicate more effectively with that person, but maybe it also helps you improve your communication skills in general with other people on your team. And then it increases productivity because instead of focusing so much on the conflict at hand within the team, you're able to focus on the actual work that needs to be done. And then, as we stated today, the goal is to help you become more confident in dealing with conflicts. And then I'll walk through some conflict scenarios. And when I walk through these scenarios, you're pretending that you're the Scrum Master. I know that we may have some participants here, some audience members that are in different roles, but all of these questions are asked to you as if you're a Scrum Master and not someone else on the team. And before we jump into those scenarios, I want to go over my specific tips on how to deal with conflict, both before it ever happens and once it does happen. So these are some things that I've learned over the years that have really helped, I think, build a strong team and set the foundation. You're still always going to run into conflicts, but I think it helps set the tone of the team and helps people know how they want to work together. So you're able to avoid some of those really easy to avoid situations. So the first one is team building. This is definitely underrated. I don't think enough Scrum Masters or just in general teams do enough team building. And with most of us being virtual lately, with COVID and everything going on, it's more important than ever to try to build that team spirit so people have psychological safety. There are other ways to build psychological safety, but the easiest way for my teams and I have been to do icebreakers, whether that's icebreakers during the, after the daily stand-up, having team building, you could do icebreakers before your retrospective. Just try to find ways to bring more fun and allow the team to get to know each other better, because it brings out people's values and their communication style. You're able to learn a lot more about them, and that's going to help you in a conflict situation, whether it's avoiding conflict to try to approach things differently, or just feeling more comfortable if you do have a problem with someone, that you can go and freely speak to them because you have that psychological safety. And then the next thing is team norms to set expectations. This is something I used to just do occasionally on my teams. Say I was joining as a new Scrum Master and the team was already established. I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't that important. No, team norms, setting team rules are a huge thing if you want to avoid a lot of conflicts. And this is just a bullet point here. We're going to get into some details on how to actually do that. And then the last one is communication strategy. You could even make this part of your team norms, but if you have some type of a communication strategy with your team, that means at the leadership level, how are they getting updates especially at the Scrum team level? Are you guys using Slack? Are you guys doing phone calls, video? Whatever it is, over communication is key because so many conflicts are caused because of lack of communication or poor communication. And the don'ts for healthy conflict resolution. So it looks like there's a lot of don'ts. There's actually more do's than there are don'ts that I came up with. But one of the biggest mistakes I've made as a Scrum Master is thinking, wow, I'm the Scrum Master. So that means, I think there's something in the Scrum guide about resolving impediments. So it's very easy to interpret that as you're going to resolve all of the conflicts for your team. That is absolutely not true. You're there to help guide the team, coach the team. If there are situations where you need to step in or someone asks you to help, absolutely help them. But in order for your team to grow and others around you to grow, you can help coach them. I would say that's the biggest takeaway is, as a Scrum Master, help coach the team to be self-organizing so that they can learn to resolve conflicts on their own and build those skills and build a better and stronger team. The other don't is don't make assumptions about the other person's thoughts or intentions. That's a common thing that happens is you think that someone took a certain action maliciously or what were they thinking? Don't try to assume what they were thinking or their intentions. That's just going to lead to probably more drama. And then looking at it as an I need to win. So what happens when you have a conflict? I would rather focus more on what do I want the end result to be than needing to win. And it doesn't mean that you would lose. It means you can come up with a win-win situation. And then another thing is don't say you or blame the other person. If you're trying to resolve this in a healthy way and have the outcomes that you're looking for, blame is not the way to do it. And I don't use the easy method of written messaging. The reason I say this is it's very easy for things to get lost in translation when, say, for example, I could just send someone a Slack message. Maybe I'm mad at someone or there's a conflict. Let me just send a quick Slack message. Let me send a quick Teams message, whatever the case may be. But if it's especially a very sensitive conflict or time-sensitive conflict, I would say see if you can actually get on a video call with a person if you're virtual. If you're in an office setting, both of you are in an office, the best thing is face-to-face. They're able to see your body language. They're able to hear your tone of voice. So don't take the easy way out. If it's something that's really important, the best thing is to use face-to-face or video. And of course, it's not always possible, but it's just a really good tip to try to prevent things from escalating. And then some do's. So do keep your conversation goal-oriented. What is your Scrum team trying to accomplish? Focus on the actual product versus being right or wrong. Listen with curiosity. Try to genuinely understand where that person is coming from, listen to some of the things that you can do to work together to resolve that conflict. And then this is something that I personally like to do. I think this depends on your personality and your preferences. But for me, let's say it's a one-on-one conflict and I'm feeling very heated about it, is I walk away and have some time to cool off, or I'll go and talk to a friend, like someone who doesn't know the other person, and talk it out a little bit and say, okay, I'm upset about this situation. I had this conflict. This is what I think I should do. And then you've kind of just talked it out. You can name your emotions like I'm angry or I'm disappointed. And then by that point, you've already calmed down and you can have a cool head when you go and you have that conversation. And then again, using the best mode of communication. If you have face-to-face available, that's great. If not, use the next best thing. And then the last part for the do's is do, inspect, and adapt. That's part of Agile, is being able to inspect what went wrong or what's going well and try to adapt. And those are conversations you can have in your retrospective, you can have in day-to-day communication. There's really nothing stopping you from inspecting anything in your project, whether it's conflict related or something else. And I also have a pointer for you about doing a conflict-centric retrospective. It's a tool that I've used before with my Scrum team, and I'll share that in an upcoming slide. And then radical candor. So this actually came up the last time I gave this presentation. Some of the feedback was focusing on radical candor. If you haven't heard of it before, you can go look up the book. I believe it's just called Radical Candor. And it talks about not sugarcoating things. So almost like avoiding the situation or sugarcoating things in a way that you're not focusing on the end result. So I think being completely honest with people, and the book does a really good job of talking about what is just being mean and giving candid feedback versus ways to give positive or constructive feedback and make sure that it has value and meaning. That way that person can take that feedback and you can resolve the conflict in a way that helps both of you. Okay. And then the conflict-centric retrospective, feel free to Google this for more information, but at a really high level, it's instead of the what's going well, what should we continue, what could we do better? It's what am I not saying that should be said? So these are things that you're thinking, but you haven't said out loud. And this is you're conducting this as a Scrum Master, this is for the team. What do I hear that should be heard? So do you hear something from other team members? It's not to put them on the spot, you don't have to name names, but do you hear there's a specific type of conflict and this should be brought to everyone's attention? You're kind of speaking up for other people on your team. And then what are the things that I say that should be heard more often? So is there a type of conflict or issue that you've stated it maybe once and then everyone's kind of brushed over it, but really it should be brought up so that the team can try to resolve it? And the best time to really use this, I would say when things haven't escalated. Hopefully things aren't escalating within your team around conflict, but maybe you don't want to put people on the spot, but you're hearing some chatter from developers or other people on the team, and it really would make sense. Of course, you have to have some psychological safety in there, but either way, it doesn't hurt to try this exercise and see if the team can really use this retrospective to come up with a solution and some different ways of working. And then how to conduct a team norms meeting. This was the part that I was saying. Every time I have a new Scrum team, whether the team is just starting out or I'm a new Scrum Master or we have a lot of new Scrum members joining, do 30-minute to an hour meeting with the team where they get to set the rules. They get to set how they want to work together, because then there's no arguments over these were the expectations of the team. This is how we want to communicate. Whatever rules that you think need to be brought up, and you can ask and facilitate questions as a Scrum Master. For me, I like to ask questions around responsibilities, pointing, things like that. And so really the team just meets, they talk together for 30 minutes to an hour to set the rules. You just want to ask some very pointed questions to get them to come up with their rules. And then you or someone on the team can document it. And you want to save it somewhere that everyone has access to. And this is a living document. So it's not, we did this one time, let's forget about it. If let's say conflicts come up and it comes down to communication. Okay, does the team want to change their communication strategy? Before we agreed that Slack messages were best, but now we're having, I don't know, bugs or whatever come up, and it's a lot easier for us to have a rule that we just talk on the phone about it. So this is what I mean by team norms. And then these are just a couple of examples. You can look through this later, but everyone's opinion being expressed. Again, that goes back to the whole respect and conflict. Again, with conflict, don't make it personal. and be sensitive to other people's conflict styles. So your team can literally come up with any rule that they want. This is just a way to facilitate that discussion.
Hey, Stephanie, we did have one question. So
Oh, sure.
Barbara asked about if this was analogous to working agreements.
Yes, it's the same type of thing. Yeah, thanks for that question. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into some of our scenarios here. I'm going to try to leave time at the end too for any questions. So the first question is, a Scrum team developer tells you and the team that Scrum is a complete waste of time. So what do you do? So I should have prefaced this with, when we talk about conflicts, there are internal conflicts and there are, so internal, something that you feel is a conflict, you're worried about, but no one has actually come to you and said that it's a problem. The scenarios that we're talking about today are more, someone has to express it as an issue, because you're not a mind reader. You can't say, okay, well, I think this person thinks that it's a waste of time, or I think there's chatter. This is really helping you deal with conflicts that are said out loud. Either someone has said something to you and you disagree with it, or want a different result, or a lot of times it happens with your team, and hopefully you can get to a point where your team members are coming to you and asking you for advice. Either ideally they're solving it on their own, but most of the time with newer teams, they're going to come and say, hey, I need help on this, to you as a Scrum Master, or they might go to a development lead. So if a Scrum team developer, a developer on the Scrum team comes to you and says that Scrum is a waste of time, and maybe they've said this to some other people on the team as well. So what do you do? For this particular example, it's about trying to understand what are the challenges that they're having with this. A lot of times people have their own insecurities about change and some type of fear that things aren't going to go well. You honestly can't hold people, you can hold people accountable, but you can't force them to do something. So the best way to really handle this type of situation would be to more show them and having a conversation. So they tell you it's a waste of time. You can have a conversation privately with them. Ask why it's a waste of time. Maybe it's a waste of time because I need time to do my development work. I need time to code. Why do I have to be in these meetings? Why do I have to be in sprint planning for 1 to 2 hours? And then having that conversation, you can have the conversation logically with them, whether or not they listen, that's a different story, but kind of explaining what are the things that they'll gain. So speaking to the opposite of what that challenge is. So they're worried that they're going to be spending too much time in sprint planning. Well, did you know that by spending time in sprint planning, that's 1 hour of your time versus maybe 1 hour per day, having to go back and forth, figure out requirements. Another thing that I know developers really don't like is when they go, I mean, no one's going to like this. You go and you develop something, you spend 2 weeks in a sprint, and then you come back and it's not what the customer wanted at all. It's not what the product owner wanted. By using Scrum, they're able to feel empowered and have that be able to go directly to the product owner or whoever it is and ask questions. So trying to feed back that type of information would be the best way to handle it. And then, of course, just lead by example. So just by virtue of having them go through the Scrum events, some of those issues are going to be addressed, and they'll realize that they're actually getting more time back. So this one you might have to nurture a bit based on the situation, but that would be the advice on scenario 1. I do want to see, as we're going through this, are there any questions specifically to this scenario?
So there wasn't a specific question, but just more of a thought, Stephanie. I'll just throw it out here now. So Tony said to this current thought about the scenario you had, he said, I don't respond with countering their concern. Something is motivating it, so I will lean into it. What about the Scrum do you feel is a waste of time? Get them to get to the root of what is motivating the concern and then try to work on that item. So I don't know if you want to expound on that or just give your thoughts, but I thought I'd just throw that in from Tony.
Yeah, great point, Tony. And that's kind of where you said leaning in. So I guess maybe not addressing it straight out saying Scrum isn't a waste of time. It's more of the understanding people are more open to things when you ask what their concerns are. So if their concern or is about, I think the biggest thing is when it comes to time, they just want to be heads down, trying to see where they're coming from so they feel heard and that they really just learn through that experience. So thanks for that comment, Tony.
Sure.
And then the next one is a junior developer on your team comes to you with a conflict. A senior developer is talking over team members in meetings all the time. Many developers feel that they can't freely share their ideas and solutions. What do you do? So for me, I had a similar situation to this happen. As a Scrum Master, you can't be there for every single thing. I try my best. I try to be in the daily stand-ups, obviously in the sprint planning, but there could be design sessions. So say you're not even a part of that, say you have another meeting, whatever the case is. So you're not actually hearing this. So taking my example, something similar happened where I wasn't in the meeting and a developer told me about this. And so I try to ask more questions because we're there as Scrum Master.
Okay, send me an email, please. I don't have that time for today.
I don't know if you can mute. So really trying to understand what's going on, asking questions. I also don't like to, there's always two sides to the story. So definitely I'm gonna listen to the junior developer. It's not that I don't believe them, but try to ask some probing questions about it. Ask them, how have they already handled the situation? Have you expressed any concerns to the senior developer, or whoever is doing this? Kind of getting a feel for if other team members feel this way as well. And you don't want this person to feel attacked either, because maybe the way that they're doing this, they are not purposefully, maybe they're very passionate about whatever design you're talking about. So the best thing you can do as a Scrum Master is try to coach them and let them ask as many questions, try to coach them to be able to go out and speak to that developer themselves. If it's more of a hostile situation where hopefully it's not, this is where you can say, hey, what can I do to support you in this? And if the developer really needs your help, it's something that could be discussed, again, without finger pointing. And this could go back to some of the examples I gave before of having team norms. Not everyone agrees that they're not going to speak over each other. Everyone gets an equal amount of time to talk for if they have an idea that they want to share. Just having basic respect for the team. Any questions on this one before we move to the next scenario?
We did have one comment, Stephanie, that said someone suggested to have a workshop to the team about the values of Scrum, especially openness and transparency.
Yeah, that's a really great comment as well. Thanks for sharing that.
I'm curious, Stephanie, I have a personal question for you. So how often do you see team members come to you as a Scrum Master hoping you're going to resolve all of their conflict?
So, and that's a great question. Unfortunately, I would say it's either developers will not speak up and they'll just allow these things to happen and avoid conflict. I would say the more I get to know the team, it does happen every couple of months. They'll come. They might have not even be necessarily, hey, Steph, I want you to resolve this for me. It's more, hey, can I bounce this idea off of you? I'm having this issue and I really want to know if I'm resolving it the right way. I think that's great. That means that they trust you as a Scrum Master and you're able to give that coaching, and then they start feeling more confident themselves. They don't even really need to ask for advice. They can go ahead and resolve their conflict on their own. So to your point about that, Mark, you really have to be observant as a Scrum Master because you have to listen for the things that are not being said. You have to observe your team, get to know them, because you can kind of sense, at least I can sense tension on the team. And if I think there's some kind of issue, then I'll try to dig in a little bit more, not to necessarily resolve it for them, but you as a Scrum Master are trying to help them with any impediments on the project. And that could include conflict that's coming up that's not even spoken. if you notice that two team members aren't speaking to each other, things of that nature, that's where you might want to start probing a little bit more. Did that answer your question, Mark?
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you.
Thanks. And then since we're running out of time here, I'm just going to skip over to scenario 4. So we're going to go back to menteecom. And the question is, I want to see, this is an open-ended answer, whatever you want to type in. You're a Scrum Master and a developer comes to you and says that a senior developer on the team is putting rude comments on junior developers' code check-ins. What do you do? So in order to answer this, oh, actually I need to change this on my phone, on mentee.com. Just bear with me here. Okay, so let me go ahead and refresh my screen. So you can go ahead, how does it say voting is closed? 79377904 if you don't already have it. Let me know if you guys have any issues trying to post in there. It should be open. And Mark, could you do me a favor and just try to post something in there to see if it's working properly?
Sure.
I think it's working probably. At least I can type in text.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to check because it says voting is closed, so I didn't know.
Yeah, Stephanie, unfortunately, it looks like I can type, but I can't hit submit.
Let me try something on this end.
My answer was going to be tell them to stay upset and get over it.
So if you guys, for some reason this isn't working, it's saying that voting is closed. If you could just put some comments in the chat of the Zoom session, and we can I'll just pull out an example or two. And Mark, I'm going to ask you to help
Sure.
moderate here in the comments. If you could just read them out as they're coming.
Absolutely. All right, so they're rolling through. We see enable the developer to talk to the teammate directly as a first step. Listen, understand, find common ground and set a shared goal. Discuss with each of them to get their point, and after it, I would discuss with them together and come to an agreement. Leverage team retrospective, keep it generic with no names. Listen, have empathy, ask them what do they need. Ask if they have spoken with a teammate about it. Talk about openness and respect of Scrum, having private conversations with that senior dev about respect. Ensure I can see those comments. Review with the senior dev and discuss with them why they felt those comments were appropriate. Discuss with the senior dev how they would feel about receiving such feedback. That's interesting. Ask the developer what was upset. Ask the developer that was upset, what did they say to the other developer? We've got lots of responses here. Have conversations with both junior and senior devs and understand where these comments are coming from and use the team norm rules to come up with expectations. More here, talk to them about how they're thinking about and communicating with each other. What are they assuming?
Yeah, thanks for reading through those, Mark. I know we only have about 8 minutes left, so I'm getting ready to wrap up soon. But I just wanted to say, this was kind of to show there are different ways of resolving conflict. I think you guys put some really amazing examples in there. Some of the examples about asking the senior developer, how would you feel? It depends on the situation. If this is, again, a hostile type of situation or really impacting the team, you may have to get involved. But if it's something on the lighter side or maybe a misinterpretation, I think there are a lot of great comments about empowering that developer to go and talk to the other developer, because they're able to help build those communication skills and their confidence that, me personally, I feel like the ideal situation is I would go and talk to that person if I was a developer, that I feel confident enough to do that. So I want to empower them to learn how to do that as well. So thanks so much for all of those examples. And I believe I did have one last scenario, but I'd rather, let me just make sure I covered everything in here. I wanted to open it up to questions to everybody since we're running out of time.
We do have a couple in the chat, Stephanie.
Yeah, so that pretty much wrapped up everything that I wanted to share other than a few scenarios. So the last thing I wanted to end on before I take questions is just that conflict avoidance often causes great conflict. So again, make sure that you're using conflict, viewing it as an opportunity to build better teams. And if this was a helpful presentation, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram and send, or if you have negative feedback, I'm always trying to improve these types of presentations. So I'm open to any kind of feedback and I love to reach out and talk to other people about Agile and Scrum. So back to you, Mark, if you wanted to go ahead and share some of the questions.
Sure. So Sari asks, how would you suggest dealing with someone being aggressive or dismissive to you as the Scrum Master?
If someone was aggressive or dismissive of me? So again, it depends on the situation. I kind of have to observe it. If it's extreme, I think it's something that I may have to go to their manager and I would go and talk to them directly, one-on-one. But I would say a lot of it is, I feel like it's coming from fear or from not understanding what Scrum or Agile is about. A lot of times people are afraid that they'll lose their jobs. Say, for example, it's a product owner. If they think by enabling Scrum, they're losing some of their authority. So I think the first step is really having a one-on-one conversation, understand where they're coming from, trying to speak to some of their challenges to say, well, you had to word it in a way to try to get some of that out. And really, it's just doing the hands-on, kind of just go with the flow and follow the Scrum processes. So they can kind of see, they can follow the processes and understand Scrum more. If it continues to be an issue, again, I would talk to them and I would have to go to their manager, because this is something that it can't really be resolved on your own if it's going to be disruptive to the whole team.
Feel guilty because I've connected with you on LinkedIn and we've sent messages back and forth. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Sari, Carrie, Sari. Does that answer your question? All right, she gives a thumbs up. Great.
Okay, cool.
Okay, let's see. We have a question. What would you do when a developer in the team raises a conflict that the senior is not available for meetings? Would that be a team coaching session or an individual coaching session?
So you said that who wasn't available? The senior?
Yeah, what would you do when a developer in the team raises a conflict that the senior is not available for meetings? So let's see. Bashir?
Yeah, I'll just answer it as if I'm going to make the assumption that it's a senior developer on the team isn't available. And I have seen this happen before. Part of it is there's two parts to this. So one of the things may be that they don't actually have all the knowledge that they need in order to do their job. So if that's the immediate challenge, I would be talking to the senior developer, or ask them to talk to the senior developer to get time on their calendar. One thing that I see developers do often is they'll say that person is not available, but they never even go to look at that person's calendar and try to book time. So kind of coaching them to have that conversation. Hey, senior developer, I'm having an issue where I really need your help, but I can't get past this. And encouraging them also to be saying those types of things in stand-up. That's a blocker. If they either don't have access to the technology that they need, or they don't have the mentoring that they need. But there's so many ways to resolve it. It could be Is there another developer on the team that they can do peer programming with? So again, like there's so many nuances to this question depending on what exactly they need help with. But I think definitely coaching them to talk it out with the other developer first. And if you need to intervene, you can always try to help them out on that.
We have 1 minute remaining. Can we sneak in one more, Stephanie?
Sure.
Okay, this one comes from Barbara, and she asks, how do you make sure that trust is really there? She says, I had a situation where we did regular feedback check-ins bi-weekly, but somehow there was something hiding, still thinking about how could it have been avoided.
Yeah, and I know this is kind of oversimplifying things, but I can't express enough how important it is to do team building activities. I've seen my team grow a lot closer and have better trust. Like in some situations, I don't think they trusted the senior developer as much or the dev lead. Maybe just for intimidation, they felt intimidated by them. But by having regular icebreakers, by having if you can have like a volunteer optional game, like 30-minute game day with the team, and just having like a good laugh, they're able to understand personalities more. There's really no single solution that's going to, there's no way to guarantee that you're going to have that trust there, because some of it may come down to personalities. People aren't as responsive or don't want to share all of their feelings. But the more that you can get your team to engage and feel like they have that psychological safety, once that psychological safety is there, they'll feel more interested in expressing anything around trust.
All right, great. Well, unfortunately, we could probably sit here and just ask questions to you all day, Stephanie, but we're 1 minute over, so we'll have to end. Stephanie, I'm sure if there are other follow-up questions, you'd be available via LinkedIn. Is that right?
Yeah, feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn if you have any more questions, and let me know what you thought of the presentation. If there's anything else you would have liked to have seen, or if there were certain things that resonated with you, I would love to hear that.
Great. Well, Stephanie, this was an awesome presentation. Thank you so much for giving up part of your family vacation to be here and talk to us. Get back to your family, have fun, and we'll see you, I guess, on September 8th for our next on Liberating Structures. All right, everybody.
Thank
have
you.
a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.